mindset of scientific experts, mindset of departments of agriculture, and there are also vested interests behind this particular technology being pushed on the farmers. But there are also other handicaps like taking it to every farmer. And are we investing that kind of time for enabling all farmers to undergo this change? And is it self-sustaining? So I just want to put to you the 6 major innovations in Andhra Pradesh, which are enabling us to scale. And all the 6 innovations have come together. And first and foremost in scaling up is government support, which is extremely critical. Government provides the resources, government provides advocacy and the machinery for implementation. Then the knowledge that we are taking to farmers is knowledge best suited for the farmer and the environment and consumer health. So, but this knowledge is again provided to them in very easy to understand form. And we are continuously researching to find better solutions for farmers. But there are 2 very critical entities at the ground level responsible for the scaling. I'll spend some more time on in the subsequent slides. One is the collective of women self-help groups and federations. And the second one is the knowledge is taken from one farmer through another farmer, the champion farmer. So this is the heroes, farmer heroes who are taking this movement forward. And then there's the role of grassroots facilitating organizations, government, NGOs, and community-based organizations. And then partnerships, collaborations with global, national institutions, philanthropies, state governments. So I believe the partnership and collaboration is extremely important in scaling up and also making the existing programs successful. So the first element in scaling up is the knowledge. So our knowledge is basically we're farming in harmony with nature for improved livelihoods and reversing climate change. And in the film that you have seen, these are our basic principles, keeping soil covered with diverse crops, minimal disturbance of soils, biostimulants as necessary catalysts. You would have seen briefly in the film, the farmer using this natural, biostimulants, use of indigenous seeds, pest management through better agronomic practices and botanical extracts, and a strict no to synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and weedicides. But it's the biostimulants which are very unique to Indian agriculture. And of course, this is the continuous green cover that we encourage. I was referring to the biostimulants. Here we have a seed coating. This is a microbial inoculum for seed coating. This is extremely important. This is fermentation from cow dung and urine and a handful of soil. The soil amendment, which is again applied on the soil, about 400 kgs per acre. This is a liquid inoculum, and these are botanical extracts. More than 200 botanical extracts. So this package of practices are, farmers like it very much, and this is something that can be made by them. They learn this very quickly, and all this can be done at the farm level and in the village. So the knowledge is one major strength. The second one is the critical role of champion farmers. You see the lady here in this in the slide is a farmer trainer, Sarojini Amma. So she is responsible for transforming farmers through her own example, through problem solving, through resolving their doubts, and actually, demonstration, setting up some demonstration plots in the village. So we also use digital communication for this video dissemination. And we have close to 6,000 champion farmers at the rate of 1 per 100 farmers. And we use ICT in natural farming. Digital video dissemination happens through this. Now, this is perhaps the most important force, is the force of women collectives. We have more than 100,000 women's organizations which are involved in this exercise. And this is something which was started 20 years ago. And in Andhra Pradesh, around 8.7 million women are organized into self-help groups and federations. Around 90% of rural households are part of these networks. Now, these women self-help groups do multiple things for the program. One is knowledge dissemination from one member to another member. Also, collective action in preparation of inputs. They plan for activity in advance. They also finance the transition. And most important is these organizations are very focused on equity. So they always ensure that the most vulnerable households are always included in the planning. So you can see meetings are very, very important forums of experience sharing, knowledge dissemination. They meet once a fortnight, sometimes once a week, usually once a month. So the frequency also varies depending on the requirement. And this is another very important reason for the success of our program, and also very important element of our strategy, because this is a voluntary process. We are not incentivizing the farmers who are in the process of transition. So we believe it takes, you have to change a whole village to change one farmer. It's a question of mindset change. Each farmer's journey is different. They may take 3 to 5 years for the change. And also all farmers don't join in the first year. So you may have, 10, 15% here. Some practices. Over a period of 3 to 5, we expect 5 to 8 years, all farmers join, and each farmer has a journey of 3 to 5 years. So we say about 8 years it takes for a village to become a bio-village. So it's our strategy to cover all 13,000 villages in this transformation. And I just mentioned partnerships. So partnership with University of Edinburgh, University of Reading from UK, Australia, we are lucky to have association with Walter Jena. We have World Agroforestry Center collaboration. So there are multiple FAO and United Nations, CIHAD. So these global partnerships are extremely important in adding to our knowledge and also enabling us to proceed at a faster rate. And also that we have with the help of the government of Germany, we're setting up a global agroecology research center. And we're also helping other states within the country. About 6-7 states are in close contact with us. We're also working with governments of Rwanda, Mexico, shortly with Kenya, and NGOs in Africa and in South America to take this technology to these countries and states. And we have partnerships with different philanthropies, Global Alliance for the Future of Food, Azim Premji, philanthropic initiatives I already mentioned. So scaling up is the critical part. Ours is a people-centered way of scaling up, building on the social capital of women self-help groups and the farmer-to-farmer dissemination strategy. And this farmer-to-farmer dissemination, we are helped by FAO's, farmer field schools. So we're doing it on a very large scale. So we have about 20 years of experience in scaling up women's collectives. So I believe very strongly, if we invest in people, invest in social capital, and invest in making knowledge easily accessible to people and their collectives, then this change is possible. And this is a knowledge intensive agriculture, not input intensive agriculture. So the human element is extremely important. So I just wanted to stress that the strategies that we are following, the innovations that we have adopted are enabling us to scale up. And this is not rocket science. This can be done by anybody. And I believe that the fact that these are very simple processes gives me hope that this can be done across all countries. Because we need to move fast. There is no time. This should have been done 30 years ago, according to me. But we should start it today. And what AP has done would perhaps help other states and other countries to move forward quickly, avoid our mistakes, definitely gain from our experience. That's our hope. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share our work with you. Over from me.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing those lessons. And I think it'll be a nice segue into the next speaker. You're mentioning of the importance of social capital for really taking APCNF to scale in Andhra Pradesh. Next, we're actually going to hear from one of the women in those self-help groups, one of the hero farmers who has been practicing APCNF natural farming for the past 3 years and has been sharing her experience and her knowledge with other farmers. So this is Mrs. Vanu Rama, who is a natural farmer in Anantapur district of Andhra Pradesh. She is currently cultivating groundnut on about 2 acres and as well as vegetables on another 2 acres under natural farming. So we'll pass it over to Vanu Rama.
మాట్లాడండమ్మా వనురమ్మ.
నమస్తే సార్, నా పేరు ఉన్నరమ్మ సార్. మా గ్రామం దుర్దుకుంట, మా మండలము కళ్యాణదుర్గము, మా జిల్లా అనంతపురం జిల్లా, మా రాష్ట్రం ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్, మా దేశం భారతదేశం సార్. నేను మీ అందరితో మాట్లాడికి చాలా సంతోషంగా ఉంది సార్. నాకు ఈ అవకాశం ఇచ్చినందుకు సంతోషంగా ఉన్నాను సార్. నాకు నలుగురు పిల్లలు సార్. నేను ఒక ఒంటరి మహిళ. చిన్న వయసులోనే నా భర్త కోల్పోయినాను సార్. 4 పిల్లల్ని పోషించుకుని నేను ఇంతకు ముందు సంఘాల్లో ఉండి సార్. సంఘంలో బుక్కులు రాసుకుంటూ సంఘంలో పనిచేసుకుని సార్. అట్లాది మళ్ళీ అనంతపూర్లో సార్ రైతు సాధికార సంస్థలో ట్రైనింగ్ జరిగింది సార్. ఆ ట్రైనింగ్కి వెళ్ళాను. ఆ ట్రైనింగ్ లో లక్ష్మణ్ నాయక్ సార్ గారు ట్రైనింగ్ ఇచ్చారు 3 రోజులు. ఆ ట్రైనింగ్ లో నేను ప్రకృతి వ్యవసాయం గురించి తెలుసుకున్నాను సార్. ప్రకృతి వ్యవసాయం గురించి తెలుసుకుని మాకు అనంతపూర్లో వర్షం పడే తక్కువ సార్, వర్షపాతమే రా సార్. ఎప్పుడో వర్షం వచ్చినప్పుడు పంటలు పండుతా, ఎప్పుడో వచ్చా లేకపోతే లేదు. అట్లా నేనేమనుకున్నానంటే ట్రైనింగ్ అయిన తర్వాత మా గ్రామానికి వెళ్ళి నాకు గవర్నమెంట్ అసైన్ ల్యాండ్ 4 ఎకరాలు ఇచ్చింది. ఆ 4 ఎకరాల్లో 1 ఎకరా నేను డ్రై సోయింగ్ చేశాను సార్. ఆ డ్రై సోయింగ్ ఎట్లా చేసినంటే నాకు చుట్టుపక్కల ఉండే పొలాల్లో కట్లన్నీ కొట్టుకుని, నా పక్కన ఉండే పొలంలో కట్టలు కొట్టుకుని ఆ కట్లు పరిసి ఆ కట్లలో నేను 20 రకాల విత్తనాలు ఘనజీవామృతం తయారు చేసుకుని ఆ ఘనజీవామృతం వేసుకుని విత్తనాలన్నీ విత్తన శుద్ధి చేస్తున్నాను సార్. బీజామృతం తయారు చేసుకుని ఆ బీజామృతంతో విత్తనాలు చేసుకున్నాను. విత్తనాలు తయారు చేసుకుని ఆ పొలంలో చిల్లినాను సార్. నేను ఫిబ్రవరి నెలలో అట్లా మంచి ఎండాకాలంలో విత్తనాలు వేసాను. ఫిబ్రవరిలో వేసినా కానీ నేను మల్చింగ్ వేయడం వల్ల నాకు హ్యూమస్ తయారైంది. నా భూమిలో తేమ శాతం వచ్చింది. ఆ తేమ వల్ల నాకు పంట పండింది సార్. నేను ప్రధాన పంట ఏం వేసాను, సద్దలు జొన్నలు వేసాను. దానికి ఇంకా మిగతా అలసందలు, అండగోర్లు, నూలు, పెసులు, ఆమ్ద్యాలు అన్ని రకాలు వేసుకుని పంట పండించుకున్నాను సార్. ఆ పంట పండించుకున్న తర్వాత నేను ఆ పంట వచ్చిన తర్వాత కోసి అట్లా దాన్ని మలసలాగా వేసాను. ఆ మలసలో వేసి మళ్ళీ నేను వేరుశెనగ వేసాను. వేరుశెనగ వేసి ఆ వేరుశెనగ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత మళ్ళీ కూరగాయలు పెట్టుకున్నాను సార్. ఆ చుట్టుపక్కల ఎవరైతే పంట పెట్టుకోలేదు, అందరికన్నా నాకే పంట బాగా వచ్చింది సార్. అందరూ నువ్వేం చేసావు, నీకు పంట ఎంత బాగా వచ్చింది అని. నేను ప్రకృతి వ్యవసాయం చేశాను, పెట్టుబడి లేకోకుండా నేను పంట పండించుకున్నాను. నేను పంటగానే పండించుకుని బాగా చేసుకుంటున్నానని నా చుట్టుపక్కల ఉన్న రైతులు 4 రైతులు వచ్చి నేను ఎట్లా చేసుకుంటున్నా వాళ్ళకన్నా ముందుకు వచ్చి ఇప్పుడు 4 రైతులు వచ్చి 10 సంవత్సరాలు ఉండే బీడు భూమిని వాళ్ళ ప్రకృతి వ్యవసాయంలోకి చేసుకునే తట్లు ముందుకు వచ్చినారు సార్. ఇంకోటి సార్, మాకు విజయ్ కుమార్ సార్ ప్రకృతి వ్యవసాయం అంటే ఎట్లా నేర్చుకోవాలా, ఎట్లా పంట మాకు ఒక ఎస్సీ వాళ్ళకు ఎట్లా మీరు ముందుకు రావాలా, ఎట్లా మీరు అభివృద్ధి చెందాలా అని మాకు బాగా నేర్పించాడు సార్. సార్ గారు వచ్చి మా ఫీల్డ్ వచ్చి చూశారు, ఎట్లా చేస్తున్నారు ఏం కథ అని మాకు సలహా సూచనలు ఇచ్చినాడు. మేమైతే ప్రకృతి వ్యవసాయం లాభచాటం ఉంది సార్. ఈ ప్రకృతి వ్యవసాయం చేయడం వల్ల మన పెట్టుబడి మనము ఆర్గానిక్ చేయడం వల్ల మనకి ఆరోగ్యపరంగా ఉంటాము, నవధాన్యాలు పండిస్తున్నాం. ఇంకోటి సార్, నేను మన దేశ ప్రధానితో మాట్లాడినాను సార్. మన దేశ ప్రధానితో మాట్లాడింటే నాకు అన్ని జిల్లాల నుంచి 20-30 జిల్లాల నుంచి నువ్వు ప్రకృతి వ్యవసాయం చేసావో ఆ విత్తనాలు, అవి సద్దులు కానీ జొన్నలు కానీ పండించిండే పంట మాకు ఇయ్యాలని అని అందరూ నాకు ఒక నెల రోజులు ఫోన్ చేశారు సార్. మాకు ఎట్లన్నా కొరియర్లో పంపేయి, మాకు మేము అనంతపురంకి వస్తాము మాకు ఇవన్నీ అందరూ అడిగినారు సార్. నాకైతే ఈ పంట పండించుకోవడం వల్ల నాకు చాలా చాలా సంతోషంగా ఉన్నాను సార్. నేను హ్యాపీగా ఉన్నాను సార్.
Great. I'll just say she's very happy. I'll now leave it to the other peer to translate, but she is extremely happy. She's a single woman, mother of 4 children, and she is so proud of what she has achieved and what she is able to tell others. Yes, please go ahead. Do the translation.
Sure, sir. Thank you. I guess I'll do justice to whatever Anurama said. I'll try my level best. So, respected EVC sir, distinguished speakers for the day of, and my loving brothers and sisters around the globe, a warm welcome and namaste to all of you. It's my privilege and to speak in front of the august audience, and I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. So I'll be doing the translation from the point of Vanurama ji. So I'll be speaking from the first person. So my name is Vanurama. I am a widow with 4 children. My husband had died at the age very young age. So I had to take the responsibility of running a family. So I was working as bookkeeper at my village for the benefit of all. I used to work as a bookkeeper with SHG. So for the benefit of all who don't know what an SHG is a community-based group with 10 to 25 members are usually women from different social and economic backgrounds coming towards fighting a social cause and also to save some of money on regular basis. So Vanurama has attended Rythu Sadhikara Samstha's training given by Lakshman Nayak sir in Anantapur in the year 2018. So during one of the visits to Durdukonta village, Mr. Lakshman Nayak sir has suggested Vanurama to go for PMDS, and Vanurama has got 4 acres of land which was given by government of AP to Vanurama ji. So in that 4 acres of land, in 1 acre she tried PMDS in 2018 with 20 varieties of seeds. In the first year, she couldn't get so profits. Nevertheless, she could arrive at the break-even point. In the second year, she had gone for groundnut crop with PMDS. Throughout the process, there was no disturbance of soil at all. I mean, she never allowed a tractor to plow the field, or she never did, and she never disturbed the soil. So with the help of PMDS, she could revive the land, and now it has become fertile. With the income she got from the crops she raised, she is taking care of her 4 children, and she is happy now. And speaking about her point of view, she said natural farming has made a huge impact on their health aspects in their home and to their neighbors. Earlier, they used to go to hospitals at least 5 to 6 times in a year, and now it has hardly once or twice, because they are cultivating their own healthy food. So they are preaching the mantra, eat healthy and live healthy. So there is no need for them to go to market for any type of vegetables. Vanurama ji is an extremely active person in our entire ROSS, and she has been an inspiration to so many people who are coming forward now to become a beacons of natural farming. With your permission, sir, I would like to share some of her pictures while she was speaking with our Prime Minister. Can I ask the organizer to share the presentation, please?
Simultaneously, if her field photographs are also there, it will be good. Just look at the time, Lindsay.
Yes, sir, I have shared with them.
So I think you should be able to see the slide.
It's not yet live, Lindsay.
It is there. It is there.
Yep, dot appear. I think it's up.
One
Can
second.
you see it?
Yeah, it's on the side. Yes, please go ahead. Next one.
Yes. Next one.
The point is, what Vanurama has done is demonstrate the power of natural farming in harnessing water from air. This is a semi-arid village, so hardly getting one crop in a year is a very, very risky thing. But through the natural farming and this unique breakthrough called pre-monsoon dry sowing, she has actually taken 3 crops. And as you can see, she is mulching the field. She is also treating the seeds with seed pelleting. Yeah, next please. This is the mulching. She got whatever is locally available, and these are mulberry sticks and other crop residues you can see in the background. So the soil was fully covered, 3 inches cover, 3 inches mulch cover. Yeah, next please. Yeah, same. On again, she's also laid groundnut husk. Next. Yeah, you can see fully covered, and the seeds have been dibbled into that. Next. You can see the germination. Next. Yeah, this is the crop. None of the neighbors had actually sown a crop because this is during a time when it doesn't rain. Next. Yeah, this is her crop with different crops. Tomato, chilies, groundnut, green leafy vegetables. Yeah, next please. Yeah, so this is eggplant. She got a bumper yield, and this is a field which was lying fallow for more than 8 years because farming there had become unprofitable. Next. She is interacting with the district collector who heads the district administration. Next, you see Mr. Nayak here, he is the trainer. She actually interacted with the Prime Minister. That's what she was mentioning in her thing. So she was shortlisted among those champion farmers in the country. And then she interacted with our Prime Minister. Next. And a lot of people from across the state, across Telangana, they all contacted her, and many people have come to see her work. She is currently a trainer in an adjoining village where she is responsible for transforming 170 farmers. So that is, she herself is a member of self-help group. She has been successful farmer, so she becomes a trainer, and then she is now impacting 170 people. Next, please. Yeah. So hardly any rain when she did the sowing. Then you can see there was spikes, but from November onwards, very little rain. And there was a drought in August. So neighboring farmers suffered fluctuations. Even their single crop didn't come out very well. Next. This is her field, the different crops. You can see the number of crops in different months. And this is what we mean by 365 days green cover. As you can see, every month there is some crop or the other. This also keeps her plot of land very cool. Yeah, next please. This is her income, 107,000 rupees for 1 acre of land. Her this is easily 3 to 4 times that of her neighbors. But also please remember, the income from that plot of land was zero because it was not under cultivation for more than 8 years. So this is a very, very good amount of income for 1 acre in a semi-arid district with no source of irrigation. So it's one sense a miracle. Apart from the fact that the food is more nutritious, soil has improved. So it's a win-win-win on so many counts. Next, please. Yeah, these are the the crops in different seasons. You can see the wide range of crops. These are pulses, millets, green leafy vegetables, and other vegetables, beans, tomatoes, then oil seeds, groundnut, sesame. So it's a what doctors would advise, having diverse crops. So her field actually also represents health for so many people. Next, please. Okay. Thank you. Vandarama, నువ్వు ఏమైనా చెప్తావా అందరికీ క్లుప్తంగా నేను అనువాదం చేస్తాను. I just asked her if she wants to give any last comment.
Yes, thank you.
Vandarama.
నేను ఈ రోజు నాకు చాలా అంటే నాకు జీవితంలో ఎప్పుడు రాని సంతోషం వచ్చింది సార్. నిజంగా అంటే నాకు తండ్రి లేడు, తల్లి లేదు, భర్త లేడు, అయినా ఈ సంతోషం ఈ రోజు వచ్చింది సార్. నాకు అందరూ ఉండాలని ఈ రోజు ధైర్యంగా గర్వంగా చెప్పగలను సార్ నేను.
Oh, thank you so much. You know what she said? I'm so happy today.
నవంబర్ సార్, నవంబర్ 14
అమ్మా సరే నేను చెప్తున్నాను, వాళ్ళకి చెప్తున్నాను. She says that I don't have father, mother, I have lost my husband, but today I feel so happy that I have all of you listening to me and bonding with me. So it gives me great happiness. So ధన్యవాదాలు. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and for sharing your experience, and thank you also to A.P.a for the translation.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you. So next, we're going to transition to hear from Mr. Min Amin, who is the anchor of the National Coalition for Natural Farming in India. And the coalition has set another ambitious target for India of enabling 50 million small and marginal farmers to adopt agroecology within the next 10 years. And so we're hoping to hear a bit more from Min about their experiences, including their experiences with promoting market awareness, awareness amongst consumers and markets for these naturally farmed products. So over to you, Min.
Thank you, Lindsay. And it is such a delight to listen to Mr. Vijay Kumar, although I've heard him so many times. He's also our steering committee member. And it's the farmers like the lady who just spoke earlier that inspire us to do the work that we do. I'm going to share my screen and take us through a very short presentation. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, right. Like Lindsay was saying, on the back of the work that RYSS has done, and there are many smaller initiatives like this across the country, on the back of all of that, we have founded a coalition which we are calling the National Coalition for Natural Farming last year during the COVID times. And within 1 year, it has gained tremendous traction. And now we boast a membership of around 800 members, very diverse from across the country, various different stakeholders, representing around 400 organizations. The reason we managed to do this is because what we are saying is natural farming is any effort, any approach that takes us towards more agroecology, regenerative-based practices is welcome. And we are also including people who are in transition, who are, taking small steps in that direction. And what we've also managed to do is retain some of the work that has been done over decades by the organic farming movement, and we are building on top of that. And again, like Lindsay was saying, we have set ourselves up for a very ambitious target of helping transition 50 million small and marginal farmers across the country who would potentially be on 30 million hectares of land within 10 years. And we believe that's the minimum tipping point that will lead to a large-scale transition in the country. And just want to take us through quickly some of the key principles that we believe as a coalition. We want a progressive elimination of synthetic chemicals and GMO. And we realize that it is well entrenched in our farming practices, but there is definitely a possibility of completely eliminating them over time. We want all our work to be friendly to our soil, to life, and the planet. We also believe in diversity of all sorts, of course, biodiversity, but also in the way we approach solving these problems, leveraging local knowledge and local approaches. We welcome all of that. We also believe that some of the issues that we face are not just on farm field; they are landscape level, ecosystem level. So we want to promote approaches which address these issues, whether they are nutrient cycles or water conservation at the landscape level. We also want to transition into a people's movement, like Mr. Vijay Kumar was saying. How can we leverage local institutions like the self-help groups to make this thing happen? We are very, very committed to this movement because we realize that just by adopting agroecology-based practices on our farmland, we will achieve multiple objectives, and all of them are critical for the future of humanity on this planet, be it soil and health fertility, be it water quality and conservation, be it improved livelihoods for marginal communities, be it immunity and health security, which is now one of the big issues post-COVID. And also, most importantly, since this is the COP26 event, agroecology has a tremendous potential to help us with mitigation and also adoption. And to do all of these things, we believe that we have to take a systems approach. And this is a systems map, a simple systems map from the Indian perspective. We want to build capacities of all stakeholders, be it extension workers, champion farmers, government officers, policymakers. We also want to produce enough research evidence to demonstrate that this is viable at scale. And that's why we are collaborating with Lindsay and the University of Edinburgh. We don't want to ignore markets. We want to ensure that there is awareness in the marketplace, and hence there is enough demand for the farmers to transition. Also, all the education systems on agriculture in India are post-Green Revolution. So they have been promoting intensive farming practices over decades. So we want to transform that also to ensure that the next generation of scientists, thinkers support agroecology. And all of this we want to do through aggressive communication to all stakeholders. Here is a little bit of a framework which is quite extensive, and we think this is a framework that we need to apply for systemic change. Very often what happens is when our NGO partners or stakeholders or government schemes are implemented, they do one or two or three things from this list of things that need to be done to ensure a successful transition. And as a result, we see partial success or failures. And we want to make sure that we work with our partners and stakeholders to ensure that all of these aspects are done concurrently, simultaneously on the ground to ensure and to maximize the success of these programs on natural farming. And I just wanted to highlight that market awareness, consumer demand, and a robust supply chain is critical for this transition to happen. And this is what we are doing. We've realized that the adoption to organic food or naturally produced food is not very high across the globe. Even in the most progressive countries like Denmark, Germany, US, England, the adoption rates is in fraction of like maybe 4%, 5%. Denmark being highest around 14-15%. And in India, it's around 1% right now. So we need to do something different to increase this adoption to naturally grown food from a consumer's perspective. We also realize that the private players and government are waking up to this, and they are showing interest. There are many new startups that are coming up in the ecosystem. And there are new schemes from the government. Recently, the government announced that the school meals, which we call the midday meals, now will start serving millet, one of the key producers of natural farming in rain-fed agriculture. There's a grown interest in health and immunity right now because of COVID. And we want to see how naturally grown food can provide that immunity in a country where access to good health care can be challenging. We're also discovering that consumers are not looking for certificates and very stringent regulation and things like that. For small and marginal farmers, sometimes that can be difficult. So many consumers, we have realized, are looking for traceability. They want to know which farmer and which farm their produce has come from, and what was this farm practicing in terms of natural farming practices. And that sometimes is sufficient for them to buy from those farmers. So as a plan, what we are doing with Lindsay and many other very interesting group of people is to form a group of a close-knit group, which will now look at how we can develop a communication strategy on health claims. We've realized that, particularly in India, where health is a big issue right now, and also consumers are very price sensitive, if we can translate the benefits of agroecology-based farm produce into realistic health benefits, then there is more likelihood for consumers to adopt it. And right now we are in a process of creating a not-for-profit consortium that will promote this nutritious food and these ideas. And with Lindsay, we have come up with 5 such claims, health claims, which we believe can be communicated to consumers in a region in Bangalore, Mysore area, where there is enough supply for naturally farmed food right now. And we can use different channels to create this awareness, and in the hope that we can see a marked difference in uptake, both in terms of awareness and consumption. Based on what happens in this pilot, we are hoping to scale this across the country. So essentially the idea is to get very smart communication through different channels, including medical professionals, around the health benefits of naturally farmed food, and then see how consumers adopt it, over time. So now I want to end with a call to rally support for collaboration. I think because the health benefits across the world for consumers are similar, the benefits for the environment are similar. Can we create common messaging, common narratives on all the benefits that one can imagine from agroecology-based farming, and then go out there to build consumer awareness? So can we work across countries and make this happen? Can we lobby with local, national, international players for consumer awareness, and also to provide more access to naturally farmed food through better value chains? And also, can we come together to advocate with governments, which is what is happening right now, for more investments, and perhaps having more public sector demand for naturally farmed food? With this, I will hand over back to Lindsay. It was a real privilege to speak here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Min. We really, really appreciate it and look forward to talking about the work that you're doing further. So I want to go ahead and introduce a couple of additional esteemed panelists that will be joining our panel today. So the first panelist we're lucky to actually have here in person in Glasgow, because she is a delegate on health and climate change coming from India. And that is Dr. Purnima Prabhakar, who is the head of environmental health and deputy director of the Center for Environmental Health at Public Health Foundation of India in Delhi. So she will be joining our panel here in person. And also on the panel, we have Professor Joe, and Purnima, you can go ahead and join us up here. Also on the panel, we have Professor Joe Smith, who is at the University of Aberdeen and a soil scientist who will be sharing some information about her research related to the impacts of the APCNF program in India on soil health. And we also have Ms. Helen Browning, who is the chief executive of the Soil Association and also an organic farmer herself in the UK. So I'll pass it first to Helen, if that's all right, to share a couple of remarks about the scenario here in the UK for organics.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. And gosh, I'm so pleased to be here this morning. I've been so inspired by what I've heard. And it reminds me that the very beginnings of the Soil Association and actually the organic movement started in India, 120 years ago. We were inspired by what farmers in India were doing back then when Sir Albert Howard came over in 1900. And that whole, the start of that philosophy, the understanding that the way we manage our soils, the health of our soils, of plants, of animals, of humanity, is one and indivisible, as our founder, Lady Eve, said, came from Indian farmers who have always, I think, led the way. So I'm just so pleased to be here and to have the chance to learn a little bit more about the exciting initiatives you've got in Andhra Pradesh and in other places. So thank you for having me. I mean, I think it puts us in Europe and in the UK in particular to shame in many ways, the commitment that you have to natural farming, the way that you are taking the knowledge, expanding the knowledge through peer-to-peer networks, the focus on women and how you're achieving all of that. I mean, in the UK, there is a recognition at last from our farmers that we can't continue down the chemical route, so that the backlash to that in terms of our soil health is coming back to haunt us. The chemistry is not working well now. And so there is actually a real interest in the UK now in regenerative farming, as it's sometimes called. And several big reports, including a national food strategy, have come out strongly in support of agroecology. But we're a long way from making it happen, although some farmers on the ground now are doing extraordinary work. If we look at organic farming as the sort of the champion bearer for natural farming, I guess, in the UK and in Europe, the market is growing reasonably quickly. In the UK over the last couple of years, it's been growing between 6 and 12% each year. But the production on the ground is not keeping pace with that change, with that growth in the market. And it's a little bit better in Europe. There is growth in terms of the amount of farmland that's being managed organically, but it's slow compared to the growth of the market. So we're tending to rely increasingly on imports rather than producing our own food. So in Europe as a whole now, there's about 14 million hectares farmed organically. And in the UK, we used to be, one of the strongest markets for organic food, in the top 4 worldwide. It looks now as though we will soon fall out of the top 10. And that's largely because, and again, Vijay reflected on this in his presentation, it hasn't been a policy priority for our government. And one can question endlessly why that's the case. Are there vested interests at play? Why is that mindset change we need to see in the UK? But we are really lagging behind the rest of the world. The rest of the world, the market for organic is now worth about 125 billion pounds, that's sterling figures, and that's expected to nearly double in the next 4 years. So, there is a lot of interest in this globally. I think one of the, and in Europe, we've got the Farm to Fork plan, which aspires to have 25% of European farming organic by 2030. And again, as other speakers have recognized, there are some exciting developments. Denmark has been so strong on making sure that school meals are organic, and a lot of the food in public procurement. In France, they've had a very strong commitment to agroecology for the last few years. But there's a long way to go. And I worry that if we require this to be all premised on a sort of premium marketplace, that we won't have that shift to organic for all, healthy, natural food for everyone that we need to see. So I would love to see, us really making this a national commitment for all the reasons that have been showcased today, for all the environmental benefits, the health benefits, and the social benefits that would come from that kind of transition. And we know from price modeling that's been done, if we all went down this route, actually organic food would be available to everybody, particularly plant-based organic food, at very little sort of premium compared to the way the market sits now. So I love the idea of a global coalition, farmers working together around the globe to make this a reality. It's such a necessity now. We have such a short period of time. We can be inspired by what you're achieving, and we would love to support you in any way we can and learn from you further. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Helen. Now I'll pass the mic over to Jo for a brief introduction to her work on soil health as relates to natural farming.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. So I'm particularly interested in the uses and losses of carbon, nitrogen and water, and how efficiency of nitrogen and water use can be improved. And in many areas of the world today, soils are degrading and the efficiency of nitrogen and water use limits crop production. From farmers practicing natural farming, we have seen evidence that they can achieve higher yields using less nitrogen and less water than conventional systems. So natural farming could be hugely significant worldwide, but there is very little published replicated evidence comparing like with like to support this. I know there's evidence coming out shortly from the University of Reading, but to date we have left very little evidence in the literature. So we recently completed an analysis of the evidence comparing available in the scientific literature on the potential sources and losses of carbon and nitrogen in these systems. And we found that natural farming practices, as recommended by zero budget systems, are very likely to increase carbon sequestration in soils compared to conventional systems. So that's really good news in terms of maintaining long-term productivity of the soil, and of course in terms of carbon sequestration to reduce climate change. However, the maximum potential nitrogen available in these systems would supply only about 80% of the Indian national average nitrogen fertilizer application rate at the very most. So this suggests that a low input farmer who usually applies less than 80% of the national average could maintain or even increase yields, but higher input farmers would expect to see decreases in yields, and if nitrogen was limiting. The question is, why is there this mismatch between the evidence from farmers and what we believe is possible? Are farmers really achieving increased yields with less nitrogen? And if so, where is that missing nitrogen coming from? And to answer this, we now have a PhD student, Rythu Nalavada, who is supported by CEH, the James Hutton Institute, and RYSS, and is investigating exactly what natural farmers are doing and how their yields compare to their yields under conventional farming, and taking measurements to track down the sources and losses of nitrogen. So hopefully, within about 3 years, she'll be able to give us the answers to this. So that's my interest. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jo. So that will take us now to the panel discussion. And we have about 15 to 20 minutes left in terms of time to answer a couple of questions. We'll start out with some questions. If there are any from the audience, please just raise a hand and Divya will come through. But I might just raise kind of a very broad question before I get to the audience questions and the questions from online. And I don't really know who to give this question to, so please just chime in to our panelists. But there has been some criticism that in the midst of this COP26 and that agriculture really hasn't been center stage, even though it is one of the leading contributors to greenhouse gas emissions as well as biodiversity loss. So I wonder if, you know, and Pete, I'm looking at you, if you have any thoughts on this too, of course, please feel free to chime in. But, you know, Purnima or others, Mr. Vijay Kumar, any thoughts on why agriculture hasn't been kind of making headlines in the lead up to COP or even these first couple of days of COP? Yes, please go ahead, Vijay.
Lindsay, I don't have the answer. That's my question also. It's a good question.
Yeah. Helen, I wonder if you have any ideas.
Well, I think there's been such a lot of call for agriculture and farming and land use to be at the forefront or really involved in the COP discussions. You know, there's been lots of talk about nature-based solutions. So I don't understand it either, really. Possibly because these are knowledge-intensive solutions rather than input-intensive solutions. I just wonder whether that still doesn't fit the mindset of the kind of silver bullet mentality that may be still going around the place. You know, we do see now a lot of companies trying to wash their climate sins using land. Land's being bought in the UK to sequester carbon. You know, it's becoming quite a challenge. Some people are very worried about the way that corporations just buying up land to plant trees to try and sort of mitigate their climate, offset their climate problems. So I don't fully understand it. I think agriculture has been seen as a problem for a very long time and an intractable one. But I think what we've seen over the last 5 years or so in particular is quite recent, that shift from feeling this is a thorny problem that is going to be very difficult to resolve to one which farmers and communities are really wanting to get their arms around and move forward on. And maybe the global thinkers just haven't caught up with that shift from problem to solution that farmers and land managers are really up for now.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Helen. Joe, do you have something to add to that?
Yes, I do. I think this issue is a thorny issue because it relates to food and it relates to maintaining food production. And also it relates to changing diets. And one thing that should be emphasized about natural farming is that unlike organic farming, it makes very much less use of organic manures than organic farming. So it uses a small amount of organic manure to prepare Jivamrita and Beejamrutham, but it does not have the huge amounts that organic farming requires. So the big potential benefit of natural farming is that it moves away from livestock-based production systems, which has a huge benefit for climate change. So this isn't answering why it's not part of it, but it is emphasizing the need to look at these systems in more detail. Of course, moving away from livestock also makes it very difficult to get the nitrogen into the soil that you need to maintain crop production. So this is why we need to look at this in more detail. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And Purnima.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Lindsay. So maybe I'll just take a positive. Yeah. So maybe I'll just take a positive lens to the situation and say that I do know that it's not completely bleak, and there is a lot of conversation around climate resilient food systems. So I think we'll get there. It may not be in the direct sense of the word, but there is a lot of conversation in the climate world about the water stressed countries, the developing countries like India, and what needs to be done in terms of access to food and nutrition security because of the acute climate conditions in the form of heat waves. We are one of the most vulnerable countries in terms of changing climatic conditions. So how it impacts not just our food security, but also the nutrition security. So there is a lot of conversation around resilient food systems, and I think it's not completely absent. And let's hope that something comes out of the discussions this time at COP.
Thanks. I was really encouraged when you mentioned that in the lead up to COP, not only were there sessions in the climate and health delegation around air pollution and heat stress and kind of the common links between climate and health, but also on food security and nutrition security.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. So I want to make sure that we get to some of the questions that were in the chat. So there was a question about how the APCNF program has living knowledge, and it's quite adaptable, communal. This is mentioned by in Min's presentation as well as Mr. Vijay Kumar's presentation. I wonder if Vijay, you might be able to talk a little bit more about that particular comment and how the social capital has kind of helped with the knowledge intensive aspects of natural farming.
Yeah, thank you. Lindsay, there are some basic principles of natural farming, which, are, as I mentioned, about 9 principles. So this is something which is applicable in all states, in all countries, according to me. But the strength of APCNF has been translating these principles into practices which farmers can easily adopt, because these are practices which are akin to what they were doing, their forefathers, the fathers, the grandfathers were doing before the Green Revolution. But with the difference that Joe has pointed out, that natural farming does not require that amount of organic manure. Actually, we require only some 1/10, or moving forward, maybe 1/5. So we see the organic inputs, or we call them as biostimulants, basically to catalyze soil biology rather than provide, directly nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium. And that's also the work that Rajutha will be doing to figure out where is this nitrogen coming from. because the modeling shows that there is deficiency of nitrogen, but in the farmers' fields we don't see any deficiency whatsoever. So nitrogen is coming from somewhere. So we believe very strongly that regenerative agriculture or natural farming is, how do you trigger soil biology, the soil microbiome, to make the nutrients already present in the soil and in the air, make it bioavailable in the right quantities at the right time. So I believe this knowledge has to be iterative. It has to be both a partnership between scientists and farmers. And that is the difficult thing. Farmers and scientists are not talking to each other because each one thinks that they know the best. So we believe in an iterative approach. There are a number of practices, and farmers learn through each other, learn from their own trial and error, and they communicate their successes. So it's a messy way of doing, but then it's something that people are used to doing like this, because we don't believe that there is one perfect solution to all situations, to all farmers. It is something that farmers should discover by themselves, and also we should help. Formal science should help. So it calls for an unusual kind of collaboration between farmers and scientists, recognizing that farmers are also scientists, and the loop will be complete when scientists become farmers, and that's not happening. So therefore, there's a very unusual sharing of knowledge that is called for, and which we are actively fostering. And these protocols are, prepared season-wise, and we keep improving as we learn more and more. And farmers are innovating all the time. So it's a tough thing to catch up with the farmers' innovations. But yes, there is, like Vanurama's case, she's saying that now her 4 neighboring farmers are ready to follow her. But I'm sure each one of them will have their own innovations. So it is knowledge intensive. It takes time to become more and more adept. At the same time, the formal science system also has much to offer. So I'm pleading for a better relationship between the two. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joe, do you have a follow-up comment?
Yeah, really, just that we very much have to actually demonstrate the reproducibility of the results that are being obtained in the field, and I think there's a huge amount of potential benefit to be obtained from these systems, but we do need to demonstrate that you actually see those benefits, because if you scale up and scale out, especially if you're scaling out to other countries, there is also potential for losses if the things that are demonstrated or that are seen in the field but not demonstrated scientifically are not actually something that would happen in other places. So we need to be very careful to demonstrate that before scaling out to other countries.
This really takes us, oh, sorry, go ahead, Helen, before I jump to this next question.
Only just a very quick comment on that, which is that it's very important to be testing and trialing in different geographies. The results you get in one place will be very different to those in another place. And so that localization of knowledge and actually supporting farmers to be innovating where they are with the support of scientists is also important. So I think that there is a real need for all of us all around the world to be working in this kind of way. And we can't just kind of wait till knowledge is proven in one place and then export it. We need to be developing that knowledge in situ.
Thanks, Helen. And Mr. Vijay Kumar, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting discussion. All I wanted to say was, while I agree with Joe, I also agree with Helen. I think there's already enough experience in the world. We have farmers in India, in Andhra Pradesh, who have been doing this for 10 years, 15 years. If any deficiency were to come to light, it should have come in the first year, second year, third year. So we don't see that. This can be documented. There are such farmers in other parts of the world. So let us not lose time. Let us study those who have been doing it for a long time and where the soil health is increasing, yields are increasing, the micronutrients, trace minerals in the food are increasing. I think there's very much to, because we're running out of time. It's next 10, 15 years is when, so there must be a very different way of doing science. The COVID taught us that we should change our protocols and learn very fast. So that's what I'm pleading. I'm not saying I'm pleading for science. I'm also saying we should do it smartly. We should do it quickly. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We have one question here in the audience, I think, which may be our last question that we get to time-wise, but let's.
Thanks very much. This is Dustin Benton from Green Alliance. We're a think tank based in the UK. And I had a question about meat consumption. I was struck by Helen's point that the UK had learned a lot from India in the early days of the organic movement. And I wonder whether meat consumption is something that we should also learn from India. When I've looked at agroecology, I've noted that you integrate livestock into rotations, but India suggests that there's not very much livestock in that. So my question to the panel is, how much livestock should we have in a system to get the best yields out of an agroecological system?
Thanks very much. So a question to the panel about livestock integration. So Joe.
It's a question that we don't actually yet have the answers to. So if you talk to farmers in the UK, many farmers will say, we need livestock in this area because the soils are very deficient in nutrients and we can't, and organic matter, we can't maintain the productivity of our soils without applying organic manure. So animal manure to keep the organic matter content up and to keep the nutrients coming into the plant system. So even farmers who are using chemical fertilizers will say that. But in other places, livestock are definitely not needed. And if you include livestock in the system, then they may be taking food that could otherwise be used for humans. So you're using land to produce food for livestock rather than providing the nutrients for humans. So you're wasting space. Livestock are key producers of methane. That's going to contribute to climate change. So the more we can reduce livestock in systems, the better. But in other parts of the world, of course, protein is deficient. People are not getting enough protein in their diets. And livestock are a very easy way of getting protein into your diet because the proteins in meat tend to be more nutritionally available than proteins in plant materials. So it can be an important part of the diet in places where food resources are more scarce. So it's a difficult question. It's one that I don't think we have the answers to yet, and we need more research on.
Thanks, Joe. And maybe we'll just take this final question so we don't leave it, but it relates to a question that I actually had in advance of this panel, which was, what are the major barriers to scaling up and scaling out organics in Europe and reaching that 25% target? And one of the questions we have here is actually around labor. So for example, in India, about 40% of the population is engaged in agriculture compared to less than 5% of the population in most European countries. So what is the role of labor? And if we already have labor shortages within the agriculture sector in the UK, and if agroecology is more labor intensive, is this a major barrier to taking things to scale? So maybe Helen, if you have a response to that one.
Thanks. I mean, I don't think agroecology is always more labor intensive. I think a lot of the real stack systems, the really complex systems that we are starting to see can be, particularly in horticulture and smaller scale, harvesting of fruits and nuts and those kind of things can be more labor intensive. Certainly where you do have animals, looking after those well to high welfare standards can be more labor intensive. I think there's a real interest now in more people wanting to spend at least some of their time working in those kind of meaningful roles on farms. But I think there's also opportunities to get rid of some of the drudgery through some of the new technologies that are coming through. And I'm quite interested in the idea of small, robotic type machines that get rid of the big tractors that have been such a problem for our soils, but actually might allow us to manage more complex environments where labor shortages are an issue. So I think there is an opportunity to bring more people back to the land, whether that's part-time or full-time, but to also look at some technologies that might allow us to manage more complex, diverse environments without always relying on that being, about loads more people.
Thanks so much. And Vijay, if you want to have a final closing remark, and we'll kind of close up the panel.
Yeah, no, I was just commenting on the labor requirement. You see the farmers who have moved to 365 days green cover, like Vanurama. In her case, there is no ploughing now. So the ploughing cost has gone. So she doesn't do any ploughing. There is no weeding. There is no irrigation. There is no pesticide application. So it's a question of dibbling the seed and then harvesting the crop. So the nature is doing everything. The birds, the bees, the microbes, they're all doing her work. So it's like do nothing farming, but it's very intelligent farming. So if you do in harmony with nature, nature's allies are there to help you. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And many thanks to all of our panelists for taking the time to answer questions today. We're coming up at the top of the hour, so I think I'll pass it over to you, Pete, who is the director of Nourish Scotland, for some closing remarks.
Wow, what a great session. Thank you so much to all our speakers and panelists on that. And what it really brought home to me, first of all, is the big picture around these talks, which is that climate justice and social justice have to go together. If we're going to tackle climate change, we have to do it in a way that lifts and helps people lift themselves out of poverty. And that's what, for me, was at the heart of this initiative. This isn't just about a new way of farming. This is about livelihoods. And as Helen says, farming better is an indispensable part of this puzzle of tackling climate change and the nature emergency. We simply can't sort this globally unless we farm better. And there is this sort of battle going on, which has been going on for years, between these two paradigms. There's a paradigm which we really heard a lot about here, which is about diversity. It's about decentralization. It's about a whole system looking at health, looking at livelihoods, looking at water, looking at resilience, looking at the whole thing together. And it's very people-centered. People came out all the time, and this is about people talking to each other, people working together, people actually sharing some of the sheer joy of working with nature and working on the land. And then against that, we've got a paradigm which is simplified, which is centralized, and which is very much focused on carbon only, as Helen says, washing the carbon sins of the big companies, and very tech-centered. And I think it's a really difficult tussle going on between those two paradigms, because in a sense, we do have to bet on one of those horses because we can't bet on both of them. I think what we've heard today is it's possible not just to do these things on a small scale, in our small farms, in community gardens in Glasgow, but it can actually do it on a state scale, on a population the size of the UK is really impressive. And what was lovely about this initiative was that it's very open. Hearing Joe challenge, where's the nitrogen gone? Can we actually scale this up? Can we replicate it? Could we move it to other countries? Is it testable? There's an open conversation going on about this. This isn't sort of smoke and mirrors. It's open, it's inclusive, it's participative. And I think it's got this fantastic explicit theory of change. How does change happen? How do you scale up? How do you scale out? And you do it with and through people. As people say, it's about knowledge intensity, not input intensity. And that's a key point. So just to finish, we were really pleased to see today in some of the sort of press release around COP26 that the Scottish Government, among other things, has said it's going to take a major push forward on regenerative farming. I've not seen such a sort of clear statement before from the Scottish Government, so it's really welcome to see them moving forward on that. And I really hope that we can we can learn as we go forward into that from Vijay and his colleagues in Andhra Pradesh and what they've been doing, not just about the importance of soil biology. You know, we've got a young man who works on the farm with me who is really excited. He's studying soil science, and he says, do you know there's 75,000 species of bacteria in 1 gram of a healthy rhizosphere? What on earth are they all doing there? You know, and it's just magic of soil biology that we're only just starting to come to terms with. So we need to learn a lot about soil biology, but most importantly, we need to learn in Scotland about how do you scale up? How do you scale out? How do you take people with you? How do we get this theory of change? And of course, crucially, the vital role of women in that process. It was only a few years ago, the Scottish government decided they needed a task force on women in agriculture because they'd suddenly realized that what actually makes things tick in a lot of Scottish farming is women who are invisible in positions of power. And I think what was interesting here was just seeing the huge reliance on women taking this agenda forward. And as we heard from our speakers. So yeah, there's I think potentially a bright future ahead if we can have faith in people and have faith in nature. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So that wraps up this program. So stay tuned for the next program.